to the house. There were so many different passes that we saw him, and he's got a little quick twitch. Is he fast? No. Quick twitch? Yes. It was good to see him moving around. Listen, he connected with, guess who?
Carter Nelson.
Thank you. We got a chance to see Carter twice. It was good for me to watch that because I think that's a precursor of what's the.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and text us,
if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music.
This is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest, quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Live from the heart of Lincoln, America. Welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hello and welcome into the Daily Nebraskan Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. I'm Ben Droz, one of the sports editors, not one of the sports writers at the Daily Nebraskan. UNL's
Give yourself a
only,
promotion.
I wish. And I'm joined here by Joseph Meyer, the senior sports editor at the Daily Nebraskan, UNL's independent student newspaper. Joseph, how are you doing?
Doing well. We're all content creators in the end, right? So
yeah,
doesn't matter. We're here. I'm excited for this show. Got some women's basketball to dive into, a brutal night for them. After a great weekend, just a complete collapse against Ohio State. So we're going to dive into that. Then get into some men's basketball, another big game against Penn State, 11 a.m. on Saturday. So we're going to preview that one. Mm-hmm. And then talk a little bit about spring football right around the corner. So should be a good show. Glad to be here.
And we're going to start off with the women's basketball talk. And on the Owl VIP line, we have Brandon Blue. Brandon, are you with us?
Yes, I'm happy to be here. How are you guys?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing well.
That's great. Well, somebody that's not doing well is probably the women's basketball team for Nebraska, because not the best game. You know, after a huge win, upset victory over Iowa, Nebraska comes up flat against Ohio State. May I add, a very highly ranked Ohio State team, a good Ohio State team. Yeah. So it's not like this was oh my gosh, Nebraska didn't win. It was just the fact that fans wanted to see it at least competitive. Mm-hmm. Brandon, can you kind of just give your overall just take on what happened in this game and how it got so out of hand?
I mean, I think Ohio State is one of the top defenses in the country, and that was just pretty apparent early on. I mean, I think they had about 30 total turnovers when it was all said and done. Nebraska gave up 29 points off of turnovers as well, and they lost by 33 points. So that'll kind of tell you how big turnovers were in the game for them. But on top of that, it was also like Nebraska couldn't even get set into their half court offenses because Ohio State was pressing for a good majority of the game. And, they didn't get tired in that press, and they were pretty effective at just disrupting their whole entire game plan.
Yeah. So Nebraska obviously fell flat on both sides of the floor. Gave up 80 against Ohio State and then only scored 47. Not a single player got into double digit for points. Was it just, Nebraska shot 8 of 23 from the 3-point line. So, not terrible, but can you kind of just, what did you feel like? Ohio State's one of the top defenses in the nation. What did you think Nebraska needed to do, differently to, maybe put up a few more points?
I feel like it was kind of hard to really get a good gauge on them just because they couldn't even, like I kind of talked about before, they couldn't really get set up into their offense a lot. And, like you mentioned, I feel like you didn't really get to see a good sample size of a lot of good because especially early on, I think they kind of shot better later in the game when they stopped pressing because they were up so big, but it was like there was just nothing working. And I think in the end, they turned the ball over on like 41% of their entire possessions, which is extremely high. So I feel like as a team, it just comes down to being, I think, more poised. After a win against Iowa, it's tough to kind of, have that mental toughness, especially on the road in the Big Ten. Things just aren't going to get easier.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't even it seemed like you couldn't even pass half court. So had to be frustrating there from Williams' perspective.
I didn't even see. So I just saw this 30 turnovers.
Oh yeah, it was really, really ugly.
I'm not misreading that. That's a 30.
No,
that's a 3 and a 0.
And there were some points where there were a couple moments where there were some questionable reach-ins that weren't called, but overall there were backcourt violations,
30
thrown away balls, and just a ton of steals for Ohio State. Brandon Markowski had a really productive night on the boards with 16, but that was all on the defensive side. Had her lowest scoring output of the season, though, so really struggled on the offensive end. What did Ohio State do well to stifle her in that sense?
Well, I think just down low, they have the personnel to kind of contain her. They had Mick Mahone, who had a big night, but they also have another pretty good big as well. Rebecca Mikolikova, that might not be how you say it. But, both they did a good job simply because I think they held her only to – in the first half, I want to say she was about 1 for 5. But, it's hard when she's really the only big body down there. And I think they were just able to focus more on her because obviously she provides a lot of attention. So I feel like really, if she had some, help from some of her other teammates, I feel like that would have made the game easier for her because she was just drawing a lot more attention because, of who she is. And also, I think it's one of those rare nights for her where she's going up against somebody where, she's not the biggest person on the floor.
Yeah, McMahon had a monster night. She was so impressive inside, on the glass. How was she kind of able to take advantage of the Huskers down low? Like you said, a bigger body maybe and someone that Markowski doesn't have to go up against. But she was just so impressive. What did you like from her performance tonight?
I feel like a lot of what she was getting and just Ohio State's defense, they were just translating because that first quarter, really, they weren't having a good offensive night as well, but I think they got their defense going, and I think she was able to get her defense going as well, and that kind of translated for her. I think she had a good amount of transition buckets as well. So I think, her just being locked in on both sides of the ball, I think that was kind of the fuel for her and, Ohio State as a whole.
So Nebraska ends up losing the game 80-47. Brandon, what do you kind of take away from this game? Do you really feel like this is kind of just a game that you should kind of just look past, not really look too much into it? Nebraska was coming off of beating Iowa. It was
kind of a letdown performance.
So, unlikely that they were also going to beat Ohio State, but it was Ohio State won in pretty convincing fashion. Do you feel like this is a spot where fans should worry, or do you think it's kind of just it is what it is?
I mean, the thing is, when you're playing a Big Ten team like Ohio State, who's ranked number 2, and on the road, like, it's not going to be an easy game. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want them to get beat by, 33 at the end of the day. But I think there is a lot that you can learn from this. But I do think in some ways, this wasn't the best team that we're going to see night in, night out, because obviously they just beat Iowa. And like, this has kind of been a theme, just being consistent and being a consistent team for a full 48. I trust that Coach Williams will learn from this opportunity. And I think that they'll remember a performance like this. And, hopefully come tournament time, this will all just be a learning opportunity so that they can go deep into March Madness.
Yeah, let's talk about Jaz Shelley. So she has a incredible weekend all over the national media, national player of the week,
and then 7 turnovers,
social media, and then comes out, only has 6 points. It's a struggle performance for her. Didn't score her first points until like 1 minute left in the second half, I believe, with only like the third 3 of the half for the Huskers. But how important, how integral is she to the success of this team on a night like tonight where she just struggles and the team isn't really able to rally around her that much?
I mean, yeah, obviously we know how good of a facilitator she is, but I think too, when she's a scorer, that makes her more dangerous. And we saw that a little bit in the Iowa game. Today, obviously, she only had about 6 points, and 7 turnovers. But I think when she's on, and that really determines, what Nebraska is going to be at the end of the day. Because what you're getting from Markowski down low, but there's a little bit of uncertainty offensively from the rest of the squad. Natalie Potts also is extremely productive as a freshman, but I think you need Shelley because she opens up that perimeter game a little bit more, and she creates other opportunities for her teammates, whether she's scoring or being a facilitator.
So, I mean, all season it's been Markowski down low, Shelley, the kind of the main distributor. I feel like what this team sometimes lacks, which leads to some of the inconsistency because you're leaning on these 2 players so much, is Nebraska. Do they have that third option? Mm-hmm. Brandon, who do you feel like is the third option on this team?
Natalie Potts, for sure, as a freshman. She's been phenomenal. And she, I think for her, not only the offensive production that she brings, but just the rebounding, I think it provides another edge, and it gives Markowski a little bit of support. A lot of these other players are just defensive minded, and that's perfectly fine. But I think you need a player like Potts just to make things a little bit easier for Shelley and Markowski. Yeah, I mean, I think she's going to be a great player here at Nebraska, but how this season goes, I think also kind of relies on what we're going to get out of her or what's left in the season.
Let's talk about that first quarter. I know you mentioned it briefly. It was a little bit back and forth. Both teams were sluggish. Neither one really had their offense going. A lot of turnovers, kind of sloppy play, low scoring. And then there's that 9-2 run, I believe, for Ohio State. What kind of changed in that moment that, as Nebraska, you say, that is the point where Ohio State really started to turn it on and look like the number 2 team in the country where they hadn't up to that point?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think if I remember correctly, I think that's when Nebraska really started to rack up the turnovers. And I think, they just lost a lot of possessions. And I feel like before that, both teams were kind of settling on the perimeter. And, obviously that's not always the best idea. And I think Ohio State especially kind of realized that. And, they just kind of started working ways to get inside a little bit more. But also, I think by doing that, they generated some 3-point opportunities as well. And that allowed them to just get hot.
Yeah, you mentioned the turnovers. I mean, once again, so if my math doesn't deceive me, for women's basketball, there's 4 quarters. There's 8 minutes in each one. So 12. 8 times 4 is 32. Mm-hmm. They had 30 turnovers. So that's almost a turnover a minute. I mean, that's just, I don't care if Nebraska shot 50% for the 3-point line. You're not going to win when you are almost averaging a turnover a minute. What do you feel like turnovers have been one of the biggest issues for this team? And if so, what needs to change to clean this up? Because, I mean, when you're going against a team like Ohio State, Nebraska can't afford to also be shooting itself in the foot with all these turnovers.
No, I feel like normally turnovers with them, it's kind of hit or miss, like some days it'll be good and then other days they're just kind of inconsistent. And I think a lot of that is also because they have a mix of older and younger players. And I feel like it just comes down to like being mentally poised every game. Today, I think a lot of it was just they weren't mentally ready. Because, I mean, some of those turnovers they were making, like, yeah, Ohio State had some steals, but there were also some that were just like traveling. Like the pressure was just really getting to them. You could tell. So I think it all just comes down to being poised, prepared, and just confident in your game plan at the end of the day.
Despite the incredibly brutal loss, are there any positive takeaways from this one, or is it just a wash, throw it aside, move on to Purdue?
I mean, I think the one thing that you could be happy about, Nebraska has consistently been the best rebounding team in the Big Ten. And even though they, today was a pretty ugly game, that still held true. Like they led them in every rebounding category except for offensive rebounds. I think Ohio State had 2 more. But I think as a whole, the fact that they can rely on that at the end of the day, I think that still bodes well. And that shows, the strength that they do have, the grit that they have. It's tough because, this is just one of those performances where I think, Coach Williams will probably talk about it for a little bit, really get on him. But I think for the most part, it's just on to the next one. But rebounding for sure, I think is something to take pride in.
So do you feel, we're almost going to wrap this up. We have Brandon Brew on the Iowa VIP line. He was at the game tonight. Well, not at the game, covered the game tonight. It was on the road. So
yeah, you didn't
have the budget.
You weren't in Columbus.
Anyway, so do you feel that this Nebraska team has the talent to compete with teams like Ohio State, or do you feel like Iowa was I know they just beat Iowa, but do you feel like that was more of kind of a fluky game because, they're at home, emotions high, it kind of was maybe a little bit of luck, or do you feel like this Nebraska team can actually compete with teams like Ohio State of this caliber?
I mean, I definitely want to say that they can, but, you look at how they performed against Indiana a few weeks back in January. That was also a pretty similar outing to this, but I don't think the Iowa outing was a fluke at all. I mean, I think one reason why I don't think that is just because you saw how everybody stepped up. And with this team, I think sometimes, and when you're going up against Caitlin Clark, that's going to bring something different out of you. And I think that's something that you just don't always see from them, that mentality, that drive, especially, when you're on the road. And I think when they play some of these more neutral games and these home court advantages aren't always going to be, so beneficial, I think that they'll be okay. And I do think that they could, surprise some people come March.
Yeah, so speaking of March, 4 games left in the regular season before you move into the Big Ten tournament. They're hoping to get that double bye, certainly. They're right on that line right now. But ESPN's latest bracketology has them at an 8 seed, and they would meet up with South Carolina, the number 1 overall seed in the second round. So you don't want to be going into the tournament with a second round matchup with South Carolina, one of the powerhouses of the sport. How do they go into these next 4 games and into the tournament with that mentality of like, hey, we got to get our seed higher than that because we want to make it farther than the second round of the tournament?
I mean, I feel like these next 4 games you just have to win. But also, I think for the Big Ten tournament, they need to be locked in and they need to be prepared to go deep. I mean, you look at the next schedule, you have Purdue, Northwestern, Minnesota, Illinois, all teams who are kind of, if not lower than where Nebraska is, they're all kind of in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten. But I know one thing has just been consistency. But I think, if they can string together a solid 4 games and carry that into the conference tournament and kind of improve where they're projected to go in the tournament, then I think that, there's no reason that they can't get a better seeding. Obviously having to play South Carolina in the second round is nowhere near ideal. And I think they'll use that as motivation going forward.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this segment up. Brandon, I really appreciate you calling in on the Hour VIP
Absolutely.
line. Thanks for the coverage as always, and we'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
All right. Again, that was Brandon Boo on the Hour VIP line. So we're going to throw it to break, and when we come back, we're going to preview the Nebraska men's basketball game against Penn State coming up on
They can't
Saturday.
afford as big of a loss.
No.
As Nebraska women's basketball just suffered.
If Nebraska, what was it? If Nebraska men's basketball lose to 33 to Penn State at home, it's at home, right?
11 a.m. Bright and early, Saturday. Game day. It's a football Saturday.
Football Saturday. All right. Well,
We'll see if the tailgating's getting going.
So hopefully Nebraska men's basketball does not lose by 33 to Penn State, because that'd be an ugly loss. But with that, we got to throw it to break. When we come back, we're going to cover that on the Day One Nebraska show right here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Tune in to the Malone Radio Show from 9 to 10 p.m. every Sunday night to learn more about the Malone Center's goal to eliminate multi-generational poverty in Lincoln. It's the Malone Radio Show every Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
I'm Jenny Benson, president of the Nebraska State Education Association. The best way to strengthen our economy for the long term is investing in our education system and raising the skills of American workers. To succeed in the global economy, we need to modernize our schools, hire excellent teachers, and focus on the future. Support great public schools, and we can make the good life even better.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Ready to upgrade your combine in 2024? The team at Landmark Implement is here to help find the right combine to fit your operations needs. Choose from 4.5% for up to 60 months or a 12-month interest waiver, followed by John Deere financial rates with approved credit through the end of February. When you purchased a pre-owned S or X Series combine from Landmark, know you are backed by Landmark's extensive parts and service network with mobile techs and parts drop-off points to keep you up and running. View our current inventory online at landmarkimp.com or stop by your local Landmark to experience the Landmark difference.
Ironhide Construction is hiring. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals who are team players. Ironhide Construction has openings for an experienced project manager, estimator, apprentice, skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
Are you searching for a helping hand in life? Look no further. Integrated Behavioral Health Services is your answer. They're your compassionate, trusted partners committed to guiding you from challenges to triumphs. Their licensed professionals offer personalized therapy for individuals, couples, and families. At IBHS, the focus is you. Experience a life-changing transformation in an environment tailored to your unique needs. Visit ibhealthservices.com today and take that first step towards a brighter future. Discover the power of healing with Integrated Behavioral Health Services. You're not alone. Let them walk this journey with you.
Hey, it's Chad with the Nutrition Authority, inviting you to stop in and check out the all-new complete post-workout recovery, CPR. CPR is ideal for anyone who works out or competes and wants to maximize results. CPR can only be found at Nutrition Authority. Stop in today and try a free sample or visit us at mynutritionauthority.com.
Why are New Year's resolutions always about getting to the gym more or dieting? We fail ourselves before the first month of the year is already over. Why not resolve to eat better, tastier foods in 2024? Look no further than Fuhrer's cheese spread. Stop eating your apples, vegetables, crackers, and chips plain. Give them some flavor. Fuhrer's cheese spread awakens your taste buds. Now that's how you start a new year. Find your container of Fuhrer's cheese spread today at your local grocery store.
Liberty Law Group is committed to the defense of your liberty and pursuit of your justice for those that have been injured. My name is Seth Morris, attorney with Liberty Law Group. If you've been injured in an accident that wasn't your fault, call 877-42-LIBERTY. Our relentless trial attorneys are committed to the highest quality legal representation. At Liberty Law Group, we will fight for you. Call 877-42-LIBERTY. Again, that's 877-42-LIBERTY.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hello and welcome back into the Daily Nebraskan show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Ben and Joseph still here with you, and we are now going to be moving on to men's basketball.
Yes, sir.
Nebraska plays Penn State on Saturday. Early game.
Early game, 11 a.m. kickoff.
They're going to kick off.
It sounds like it's a time that should be followed by a kickoff, not a tip.
Yeah. It's a little weird that it's that early.
It's a home game, though. The last 11 a.m. tip did not go well. That one was in Maryland.
Yeah.
And that was a blowout loss. So this time it's Penn State that's got to travel from the Atlantic Ocean all the way into the middle of the country. Come hang out in the cornfields on a Saturday morning.
Random state in the middle of the country.
Very random. But a random state that's got a pretty good basketball team.
At home.
At home. Yes. Okay. But they are at home.
That is true.
I don't know if it'll be quite the environment as like a Saturday. Even Saturday Night Michigan was pretty good.
I think it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It won't be. I don't think the hype will be quite there, but
it wasn't really there for Michigan either, and they didn't need it.
It was also a Saturday night game, and I think the vendors of a certain variety did pretty well that night. As I was looking around, the vendors of a certain variety did pretty good. So,
yeah.
I'm excited to watch this one just because they've had a week off for the first time in forever.
Yeah, last time Hoiberg said this last time they had a week off. I believe it was after it was before the Creighton game.
Yeah, so they have not. So the Big Ten gives every team 1 week, a full week. They got a Saturday to a Saturday of no games, and then outside of that, it's kind of the non-conference scheduling. So they did have that week.
Yeah, so
that one didn't end up well.
Yeah, see, that's what the whole thing he was saying post game. I mean, honestly, Hoiberg it was really weird after the Michigan game. He was kind of, I don't want to say he was mad, but he was like not happy that at the end of the first half, Michigan kind of came back a little bit and cut it to 20.
It was about as mad as you could be by winning by 20.
Yeah, like you would think he'd be in a good mood. He wasn't in a bad mood, but he was just like, yeah, we won. We didn't play.
It's hard to feel bad
amazing.
after a game where Matar Diop hits a three and it hits a bank three. So I'm not surprised he was upset, though, because there were some points where they had lulls and it was like this game could have been a 40-point win. But it was still a 20-point win, which helps you out in the terms of metrics, even though Michigan's a really bad team. But Penn State is not as bad as Michigan. They're not a great team by any means.
So, yeah. So, like he said, so then after that, he was saying, okay, on to the next game. Last time we had a week break, we came out flat against Creighton and Michigan. I mean, not Michigan, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Can't do the same.
You can't afford it. You cannot
to
afford another 2-game losing streak. Like, your tournament hopes will be gone.
You'd have, I mean, they wouldn't be gone. They'd have to make a run in the Big Ten.
They'd have to make a big run in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
Which, again, I've said this over and over, can't rely on that. Can't rely on that.
No.
Because then you're playing tight You're playing, we need to win this game. Whereas right now, you play loose, you play free against Penn State and Indiana and Minnesota and Ohio State, who just fired their coach, and Michigan, who probably should fire their coach by the time you play Michigan again. Like, those are all games you should win. It starts with Penn State. I think this is the toughest opponent left. Indiana, in my opinion, is the toughest game because it's in a away environment at a place that Nebraska has struggled to win.
Minnesota might also be a tougher game.
Yeah, but it's at home, and I think they should be able to handle that one.
I think Minnesota at home is a little bit tougher than Penn State.
Okay, that's fair.
But
you've already seen Minnesota though, and you haven't seen Penn State. This is the first team that you haven't seen all season.
That is true.
The last Big Ten team you haven't faced yet. You don't really know how you match up. There's a little bit of uncertainty about the health of their roster, so you don't know exactly what Penn State you're going to get. So 12-13 overall, not good. Not good record-wise. 10th of the Big Ten, but they're 90 in Ken Palm, 96 in the net, so not as bad as that record may indicate. They've, played competitively, lost tonight. So they lost tonight to Michigan State by 8 points. Michigan State led the whole way. It was a pretty solid win on the road for Michigan State. Penn State is a team that has some talent at the top of the roster, just not super impressed with their depth. And I think that's a big opportunity for Nebraska to take advantage of this team with how much depth we've seen that the Huskers can have over the course of 40 minutes. So, like I said, 11 a.m. game coming over from the East Coast. Penn State's got to be ready to go. They have a shorter week, not a super short week because they'll still get Thursday, Friday. But Nebraska's got to be ready for this one because if you're not, Penn State does have the potential to catch you flat-footed. They've had some nice win streaks over the course of the season. Last 2 games have not been pretty. So I don't say pretty. They lost by under 10 points, but lost to Northwestern where it was kind of a back and forth all game, and then lost to Michigan State tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Back-to-back losses. Season is all but over for them. Another situation where they're playing with nothing to lose. Michigan was playing with nothing to lose, and they got killed.
So when you just look at this game from the outside, Nebraska seems unbeatable at home. Penn State seems very beatable just with how they've been this season.
Right.
So when just looking at it, this should be a pretty easy win for Nebraska.
I would be surprised if they don't win.
The only, and I agree, it would be bad in my opinion if they lose, if Nebraska loses. The only thing that worries me is how is Nebraska going to be after the week off? Because we saw how they were the last time it was a week off. Then granted, that was Creighton, and then just a meltdown against
little
Minnesota
bit of a different
on the road.
team.
So, I mean, I get it. It's different. Like, Creighton was a better team, and then Minnesota was on the road, and now you have Penn State at home. But, Nebraska just killed Michigan. Could be feeling, I don't want to say cocky, not cocky, but just, could overlook. Penn State could be a team that they overlook.
It's certainly a possibility, although I don't know who you would be looking over them for. Like, this isn't a spot where you get,
game.
Yeah, that's fair. But this isn't a spot where you have a ranked opponent coming up. I think Hoiberg probably ripped into him quite a bit this week. Just with the demeanor that you saw, especially going into halftime of that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to let them get cocky about that game. And I'm sure they've taken some much needed rest. But 2 things about Penn State that I think if you're Nebraska, you should feel good. Not a good rebounding team. So that's been one of the big things this season.
Nebraska has a chance to out-rebound the opponent for 2 straight games. I don't think they've done that all season.
And when they do that, they've definitely done that all season.
Well, I'm saying like in conference.
Okay.
Conference play.
There's probably a couple games in there. I'd have
in
to go
conference
back and look.
play, I don't know.
I bet there is. I'd have to go back and look. But not a great rebounding team, so a big opportunity on the boards. We know what happens when Nebraska wins the battle of the boards. They win.
As long as they don't turn it over.
As long as they don't turn it over. But usually when they turn it over a lot, they also lose the battle of the boards.
Yeah.
So Penn State, fewest defensive rebounds in the conference. So you're going to have opportunities for offensive rebounds, which the Huskers have struggled to get all season. Not to mention, they just came off a game where they rebounded very well against a not great rebounding team.
Yeah.
So I think Gary and Alec, again, big opportunity for them to have just bouncy nights where they're just all over the rim and getting up and grabbing boards. Second fewest in total rebounds too. So they're not great offensively or defensively.
Yeah. Alec once again has the chance to bring the energy, and Nebraska is going to need it, because if Nebraska gets another performance from Alec like it was against Northwestern, where he's just kind of running laps out there, I'll say.
It was bad, but he bounced back.
Oh yeah, he bounced back in a great way. He set the tone against Michigan.
Oh yeah.
So
and I know I didn't get the chance to talk about this because you guys touched on Monday when I wasn't here, but
yeah,
I was so I mean, that was one of the most impressive performances I've seen of any player all season, just because I had completely counted him out after that Northwestern game, and he came and really put it to Michigan early.
He showed why he's in the starting lineup, and it's to bring the energy. Like, because if he's not, I mean, Alec is not a guy that's gonna, stuff the stat board every single game. Like, a lot of the stuff he does, you don't see in the stats. He's using that high motor he has, the athleticism he has on defense, and then also offense, pressuring, getting offensive rebounds. Like, that's what Nebraska needs. And he has a chance to once again have a pretty big night, because I don't think anybody with Penn State can anyone really match up with him athletically on this Penn State team?
There's a couple guys, and we'll get into that in a bit. They've got some athletic, bigger guys, which wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska goes back to that bigger lineup that we saw against Michigan and saw against Northwestern.
I bet they're going to stay with it.
I was surprised that Hoiberg actually went back to that for Michigan, and it paid off. But he seemed on Friday when he talked before the Michigan game, he seemed very like, we made a mistake in rolling out that big man lineup against Northwestern. And it may have been a mistake against Northwestern, but against Penn State, not a great rebounding team, a team that doesn't shoot the three very well. So you're not going to have to worry about getting ran out of the gym like you would against a Creighton. You can start the bigger starting five and not have to worry about it so much. So yeah, like I said, Penn State, not great from behind the arc. Couple guys shooting mid to high 30s. No one's in the 40s. No one really jumps off the page to me. Nebraska is 100% the better team from deep. And we've seen that, not matter before in some instances against Maryland and Rutgers, but those are, again, usually on the road. So at home, I'm not too concerned about Penn State shooting the lights out. There is one player I'd like to touch on a little bit later that does concern me, because he has been hot. So that's a little bit of, we got to get into the starters.
All right.
Because as you know, Nebraska likes bench players that go off.
True.
So Kanye Clary, sophomore guard, averaging 17 points per game on the season. He's battled some injuries. He's been in and out of the starting lineup over the last month. Didn't start tonight. Played quite a few minutes, but he's been limited. He missed. They had a winning streak of like 3 games against Rutgers, Indiana, Iowa, which, again, not impressive wins necessarily, but for them, good wins. And then came back, lost the last 2. He's had limited minutes, came off the bench tonight, only scored 8 points. He didn't have any points in the previous game against Northwestern. So he's only had 16 points over the last 2 games. Coming off the bench. I don't know that he's going to come off the bench with more time to rest up. So it's certainly possible he's back in the starting lineup. And that's what I was talking about earlier. We don't necessarily know which version of Penn State you're going to get, because when he's on, he's a very quick, flashy player, but that injury may be nagging a little bit. I think they're going to need him to be a factor offensively. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Nebraska. Outside of him, there's no one that really scares me necessarily, but there's a couple guys that can have pretty nice nights. So Ace Baldwin Jr. played 40 minutes tonight, all 40 minutes.
Wow.
So he has stepped up in terms of the minutes in Clary's absence and in his limited action. Only had 15 points, though. Not a spectacular night by any means. He's averaging 14 on the season. More of a distributor, though, so he leads the team with assists, 5.4 a game. Third in the Big Ten, actually, in assists. So he's the more facilitator, where Clary's the scorer. You don't have that production from Clary. Baldwin's able to pick it up. He had a couple insane plays. I was watching the Iowa tape. He kind of just throws it up and it goes in at some points. A little bit, I'm not going to say boo-booey-esque, but there's a factor of that to his game. And we all know what boo-booey and kind of just throwing it up and it goes in can do to Nebraska.
Yeah. Nebraska has had problems with, some of these Big Ten teams' best bench players kind of having career nights. I mean, it's happened all season. But I want to say Are you at all concerned about any one person really, on Penn State going for like 20, 25? Because I feel like that's the only
Not
way
necessarily.
that's the only way they can win is if
There's
they get
a
that.
world where Baldwin does it. He has the potential. He had, I believe, 22 points in back-to-back outings against Indiana and Iowa in big wins. So when they win, he has some ridiculous stat lines and a couple crazy plays. He's shifty and quick and drives to the lane fast. But again, Nebraska's defense at home has just been much better.
This is why I like the bigger lineup, because I just feel like Nebraska's just going to physically dominate this game.
And even Baldwin, when he has most of his production actually comes from the free throw line. He went 8 of 8 tonight, 8 of 9 the other night, had a 9 of 9 night a couple nights like last week. So that would be my concern if guys get into foul trouble, because he is driving to the paint, maybe catch an arm from a bigger guy on the way down.
Yeah, last time Nebraska had foul trouble, I feel like, unless I'm forgetting one, was that Rutgers game when it went to overtime. And Alec and
there haven't been a lot of guys that foul out this season.
No, so Nebraska's been pretty good about that. So I'm not too worried about that. Nebraska should be fine. I think the only way Nebraska loses this game is if Nebraska beats themselves. Turnovers comes out flat.
Yeah,
just like they're the better team. There's just no world where.
Yeah, it's interesting you say turnovers, because Penn State doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and they're the best team in the Big Ten at getting takeaways. So that would be a concern.
That's something Hoiberg pointed out in his post-game press conference. I forgot about that, saying that Penn State's like a very different team.
15 a game.
Michigan's a team that likes to just shoot the shoot 3-pointers.
That's
they
not
kind of
Penn
have
State. Yeah.
They have kind of a more explosive offense. Their defense has kind of been their problem for Michigan, as it was shown. Nebraska was just scoring left and right on Michigan. But Penn State, it's like almost complete opposite. They're going to rely on their defense. And Nebraska, this could be, if this is a game where Nebraska's turning the ball over a lot, it'll be close.
Yeah.
It'll probably be a close game, unless Nebraska shoots lights out.
Which they are certainly capable of doing.
Yes.
I don't know that you're going to get the same situation against Michigan, where you're not shooting the best from 3 early and still dominating.
See, against Michigan, Nebraska just completely went to the paint early, and I pointed that out in my gamer story,
which you usually can't do in Big Ten play.
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska went on. I'm trying to remember what it was, like a 20-3 run or a 22-3 run, and Nebraska only made like 1 3-pointer on that run. That's just like unheard of.
Unheard of for this team.
Not just
granted against Michigan though,
yes. So that's why I don't really want to take too much away from that Michigan game, because it was just such a. I have to be honest. I kind of stopped watching the game like halfway through the second half.
You got a good head start on your gamer story.
Oh, yeah, I got it in really early.
Yeah, it was nice.
But yeah, so the Michigan game was complete disaster for Michigan. Penn State, it's gonna be a closer game. Don't expect Nebraska to just blow them out of the water right away.
No,
but
the only way that happens, in my opinion, if it's just another lights out game from 3 and Mast hits, hits 4 and Tominaga hits 4.
So it's gonna be a closer game. I still don't expect Nebraska to win by like 15, 12, 15, but it's gonna be much like slow, like in my opinion, it's gonna be more of a gradual like increase of the lead. It's not gonna be like Michigan would just come out firing first half, go up 30 like halfway through the first half, it seemed like, and then just kind of coasted.
Yeah. Couple more guys to watch out for, and then I'll get to my player to watch for in this game. Kudus Wahab, 6'11" senior.
Kudus Wahab
at the 5. So he's one of the best rebounders in the Big Ten, 7.8 per game. So that's going to be Mast's, job to, again, not a super athletic center though. And Mast has played well against those. It's been the more bouncy guys that he's struggled with. So I'm not too concerned there. But really the only guy that's racking up massive rebound numbers, only scoring 9 a game though. So not too big of a concern there. Nick Kern Jr., 6'6" guard. So he reminds me a little bit of the way Gary plays. So, he's at the guard spot, doesn't necessarily play like it, doesn't shoot the 3 well at all, very bouncy, very athletic, loves to drive to the paint and slam it home. A lot of those like baseline cuts that we see from Gary, get a quick dish and just bounce it over someone's head. So he is, athletic guy. He's also a solid rebounder, 4.1 boards per game, but only eight points per game. So he's explosive, but again, not a super big scoring concern. Here's my player to watch for. Zach Hicks, 6'6" junior forward. Only averaging 7.4 points per game this season. But he's had at least 14 in the last 4 outings. And it's been off the back of some incredible 3-point shooting nights.
Yeah.
Tonight, against Michigan State, 5 of 6. So he's got a little bit of that rink masked. I'm a big guy, but I can shoot the 3 too.
Mask shoots it from 3-point line a little bit too much for my liking sometimes.
But yeah, Hicks. So don't be surprised if he's a guy that just kind of goes off from nowhere from behind the arc.
Yeah.
He kept them in the game tonight against Michigan State. Like, Michigan State was clearly the better team. When you hit 5 threes, single-handedly kept them in it when the rest of the team just wasn't really productive. And the weird part about tonight's game against Michigan State, Penn State kind of kept their bigger stars out of it. Hogarth and Walker only combined for 10 points. So
that is interesting.
It'll be a benefit to Nebraska be depth. You have some depth here because Malik Hall.
Nebraska's definitely the deeper team.
Yeah. Penn State allowed Malik Hall to have 29 points, best game of the season, 29-10, so double-double.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaden Akins scored 20. So 2 guys that aren't your usual flashy Michigan State guys. It's usually Hogarth and Walker. They only had 10 points combined. Could say something about Michigan State, but I also think you can look at it like, hey, Penn State may have slowed down the number 1 and number 2 option, but Nebraska's got an opportunity there as well. So if there's a guy that's going to go to lights out from 3 and beat Nebraska on his own, it's Zach Hicks. Been an incredible 4-game stretch for him, shooting lights out from deep as a big guy. That's going to be someone to watch because I'm not necessarily sure who's going to be that. He can stretch the floor, so you got to have someone to do that. Other than that, really no one that would concern me too much. They do have a player named Puff Johnson, though, and I love his name.
That's interesting. Make sure to note that in the minutes.
Yeah,
Puff Johnson
named it. 6 points per game, 3 rebounds, but has a fantastic name. Love it.
Yeah, that's great.
And then DeMarco Dunn, guard that's been filling in for Clary when he's been out. So there's a lot of guys that have that 6 to 8 points per game range. Nothing that scares me too much. Clancy and Baldwin are really the only players that are going to scare you if they go off. We don't know if I said Clancy. I meant Clary. Kanye Clary and Ace Baldwin. Those 2 guys are really the only 2, and we don't know if Clary's going to be healthy. And then watch out for Zach Hicks because he might just go lethal and have a 5 of 7 night from deep.
Hicks has been good lately, so we'll have to see. Before we throw it to break, I'm going to ask the same question I do always time. X factor for Nebraska.
X factor in this one. It's kind of tough.
Yeah. It's hard to point out one guy for this one, in my opinion.
And I'm going to say Gary because I think his production since coming back and getting healthy has been huge. Coming into that starting lineup, he's now getting comfortable in it. If they choose to go with that bigger lineup again, and we'll find out on Friday.
I think Corbert's going to be staying.
If they're going to rock with that, or he might not tell us until game time.
Probably won't.
But I think he'll be important in slowing down Nick Kern and being a guy that can prevent some of those athletic cuts to the basket. And so I'll say Gary. Another guy is going to be Sam Hoiberg here. Again, just a scrappy defender. You're going up against a guy like Clary, who's only 5'11", smaller guard, but he's very quick. That's Hoiberg's game. Like, Hoiberg wants to lock him down.
When you said a guy named, I thought you were going to say Puff Johnson. Just like when you're going against a guy named Puff Johnson.
See, here's the thing. Puff Johnson, I really hope he's listening to this. If Puff Johnson goes off in this game, it wouldn't even surprise me.
Just because of the name?
Because of the name, because he's a bench player, because he hasn't done much this season.
It's perfect.
It's perfect to go off and
against Nebraska.
Ruin Nebraska's tournament hopes.
Yeah. I like those picks. Gary's definitely he had a good game against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be needed in this run to try to make the tournament. Gary's just he is the reason why Nebraska, why this bigger lineup is working, in my opinion, because he can be, when they bring Alec or Mast out, he can slide to the 4.
Yep.
And then when they're both in, he's comfortable, being kind of the third big guy on the court. So I like the Gary pick. I'm going to go with Wilcher because he kind of had quieter night against Michigan. Wilcher
he's been quiet the last 2.
Yeah, last 2. Yeah. So, but last time I thought a player was going to have a bounce back, which was Tominaga on his birthday against Wisconsin. Against Wisconsin.
I think you said Wisconsin. He didn't play well against Wisconsin, I believe.
It was his birthday, and he had 2 straight dud games.
You missed.
I just missed it by
there,
a game.
and you missed it.
I just missed it by
and then
a
he
game.
went off against Illinois.
Yeah, so I accidentally said Wisconsin.
So it'll be Wilcher against Indiana that goes off.
Probably.
Since you just predicted him to go off.
Yeah.
On Saturday.
I always think they can't have 3 straight bad games, but they can't have 4 straight bad games.
I keep thinking this game's tomorrow. I keep saying tomorrow because usually we do it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so I got Wilcher. I think Wilcher, he's been huge off the bench for Nebraska. Before we throw it to break, I want to get your thoughts on the bigger lineup, because the only thing that was concerning, I loved it. I love the bigger lineup. The only thing that concerns me is you don't have a big guy coming off the bench. Really?
No, you don't.
So
unless Job can turn into a step back bank 3 guy off the bench. That was so awesome. Oh,
so what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I like it though, because Lawrence just wasn't doing anything in the starting lineup. There was he's been no point of him being in the starting lineup.
Yeah,
and Hoiberg said he really enjoyed. Hoiberg said Lawrence came to him and said, "Hey, keep me in this bench position. I feel comfortable here."
Yeah, I feel like
because that's where he excelled last year.
It was just so weird him being in the starting lineup, because Bryce Williams is the quote unquote point guard of the team,
as he should be, and
he also is going to need to not turn it over against Penn State.
Right,
that's big. He can't be loose with the ball. He was really good against Michigan with that. He needs to do the same against Penn State. Can't be loose.
But I really I learned Lawrence off the bench, so I would stick for it for now until it doesn't work against some of the better shooting teams. It would be. It's hard because you just don't have that same perimeter defense.
This is why I think Hoiberg needs to be put in the lineup against those kind of teams. Slide Alec onto the bench.
Okay.
Put Hoiberg. Because I feel like Hoiberg complements Bryce
pretty
Williams
small there, but yeah.
Not really.
You're right. If you're still taking Lawrence off the bench, then you still got Williams in there. So
because I feel like Hoiberg is.
We'll see. There's not a great team until the Big Ten tournament, though. So you kind of have some time to warm up this bigger lineup.
This is why I was kind of wanting Hoiberg to tinker at the lineup against Michigan. I just want to see Hoiberg in the starting lineup.
That's fair.
But maybe it's just because it's his son and he doesn't want fans to be like, "Oh, you're starting him just because he's your son."
I think he's just an energy guy too. Bring him off the bench and you.
Then again, that's what I feel like Alec is, and he's starting Alec.
There's a lot of guys that are that juice guy off the bench. It speaks to the culture of the team right now.
Yeah. As much as I want to see Hoiberg in the lineup, it's going to be he's going to stick with the bigger lineup until it doesn't work, and it's going to be too late when it doesn't work. That's what's going to happen probably. But with that, we got to throw it to break. When we come back, we're going to touch on Nebraska football, spring ball, right around the corner.
Oh yeah.
So don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Day One Nebraskan Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hey, Joe, check out my new ride. Pretty awesome, huh?
Whoa, that's a sweet convertible. You didn't, win this on a game show, right?
Nope, this is all me and my pals at Members Own Credit Union.
Oh, yeah, they're the people with the great auto loan rates.
And right now, everyone who transfers or gets a new auto loan has the chance to win a $1,000 gas gift card, too.
Well, you know what this means.
Road trip! Fuel your adventure with an auto loan from Members Own. Restrictions apply. Go to membersowncu.org for details.
Are you searching for a helping hand in life? Look no further. Integrated Behavioral Health Services is your answer. They're your compassionate, trusted partners committed to guiding you from challenges to triumphs. Their licensed professionals offer personalized therapy for individuals, couples, and families. At IBHS, the focus is you. Experience a life-changing transformation in an environment tailored to your unique needs. Visit ibhealthservices.com today and take that first step towards a brighter future. Discover the power of healing with Integrated Behavioral Health Services. You're not alone. Let them walk this journey with you.
Tune in to the Malone Radio Show from 9 to 10 p.m. every Sunday night to learn more about the Malone Center's goal to eliminate multi-generational poverty in Lincoln. It's the Malone Radio Show every Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Today's agenda includes office meetings this morning, followed by a client lunch, then back to the office for another meeting, and ending the day with a presentation at a client's office. When you are on the go, you need an office phone that goes with you. At Hamilton, our business phone systems make it easy to sync your office phone features to your cell phone for quick and seamless call handling, no matter where you work. If your current office phone can't do this, you need better. Hire your local experts. Hire Hamilton at hamiltonisbusiness.com.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports is quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Problem gambling can destroy an individual's finances, relationships, physical, and mental health. If you are a loved one or struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 402-476-2300.
Liberty Law Group is committed to the defense of liberty for those accused and the pursuit of justice for those injured. Liberty Law Group's relentless trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and personal injury law. Navigating the legal system can be stressful, overwhelming, and full of uncertainty. We believe in treating every client with respect, compassion, and understanding. When you're in need of legal assistance, trust Liberty Law Group to fight for you. Call 877-42-LIBERTY. That's 877-42-LIBERTY.
Okay, it's time to sell the house. How do we even begin to choose from the hundreds of realtors in town?
Easy. We make a pros list.
You mean a pros and cons list?
No, just a pros list. We need someone with pro photography to showcase the house in the best possible way, pro marketing to make sure we get maximum exposure, pro negotiations so we know we get the best price.
This is one of those times where you already know the right answer, isn't it?
You know it is. Ben Bleicher and Professional Realty Group.
Contact Ben Bleicher and the team at Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services Ambassador online at prg-ne.com.
Nutrition Authority invites you to try Anarchy, which is an exciting free workout for athletes and fitness enthusiasts who want the most out of their workout. Anarchy can only be found at Nutrition Authority. Remember, when you want results, the solution is simple. Nutrition Authority. Stop in, call, or check us out at mynutritionauthority.com.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back into the Daily Nebraskan Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. We got one final segment here. Joseph Meyer and Ben Droz with you as always. So, Ben, spring football is right around the corner, and I'm excited. We got more news about the spring game. Matt Rule talked about spring practice a little bit. They started mat drills and walkthroughs and coming up here. Some, hype videos on the Twitter feed. Yeah. It's hard not to feel like we're almost around the corner to fall, even though we've got a lot of months. But
it feels like football season just ended.
It feels like it just ended, and it somehow feels like it's about to start, which it's not. But there's so much content during spring football, especially with a big name quarterback in town to talk about. So I'm excited for that. But I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple things. So Matt Rule went on the Huskers Radio Network yesterday and kind of talked about the culture of Nebraska athletics as a whole and how Nebraska football is going to fit into that. And it just was so refreshing to hear that from the leader of, and I know he's not the leader of the university, but PR wise, Matt Rule is the face of Nebraska right now nationally. And what do you mean? Say that again.
Yeah.
You looked like you weren't in agreeable there. You think nationally, when people think of Nebraska, what do you think they think of? The current state.
Do you know Nebraska's program hasn't been relevant in years? Nebraska, when people think of Nebraska, they probably don't even know who the head coach is.
Right, but Scott Frost was not good at media. Like, from the media perspective, Matt Rule is going on big time shows, going on, Kirk Herbstreit's talking about Nebraska in the middle of February. because of Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola. Like,
that is true.
He's been on game day. He's doing tons of radio shows. He's tweeting about other Husker sports. Like, he is at the, I won't say the head of or the face of, but he is at the front of Nebraska athletics on the complete front. And I think it's refreshing because Scott Frost never talked about this stuff. You never see Scott Frost storming the court at a basketball game or supporting, volleyball or high-fiving the women's team as they walk into the locker room after beating Iowa. And he talked about this of how much he takes from Nebraska men's and women's basketball this season and how he can take that into the football locker room. And I thought that was so cool because it's a full front of, this is Nebraska athletics. We're going to do it all, and we're going to do it all well. Pretty much every program is doing very well right now outside of football. So it's nice to see that he is acknowledging that.
See, the one thing, I do like what Matt Rule is doing, and what it always feels like, and, I've talked to some student athletes, when they have their shows here, and it always feels like, football guys kind of do their thing, and other student athletes don't really mingle. Like,
right.
It's kind of like football's like football. You can't do anything else. It feels like with Rule, it's not like that. Like, he's kind of,
especially not with Rule, and not even like Raiola going to basketball games and retweeting the other Husker sports.
Yeah, we never saw that before.
No, and it's cool to see. And I know there's a lot of big events that have gone on at PBA and obviously at Devaney this year. But even Rule talking about how he just hurts for Jordy Ball and how proud he is of her as a leader. It's like Scott Frost would have never done that.
No.
He might have offhand mentioned if someone asked him about it, but to bring it up himself?
No.
Like, we're going to move the spring game to 11 a.m. and then bring the recruits to go see softball.
Yeah.
That's great for the university.
So, okay, not to bring the mood down, but if Raiola gets hurt just like Jordy Ball to start the season.
Oh, my God.
Nebraska.
Don't even bring that into the world.
Nebraska is cursed. They were officially
Don't even bring that into existence. If that happens, it's your fault.
It's my fault.
If anything weird happens in that first game, it's your fault now.
It's my fault. I had to say it.
Could you imagine, bro?
I had to say it because doesn't it feel so eerily similar? Raiola.
But you've got Harburg. You've got Harburg waiting in the wings.
True.
Danny Kalen's ready to go.
True. But I'm just saying, like, Raiola going down would
you almost feel like Raiola will miss time just because Kalen came here anyway. Like, it's almost like Kalen's like, yeah, you know what? Something inside me tells me that Raiola is going to miss time and I'm going to get to play.
Eventually, probably. Why else would he have came here?
Build a culture. Build the culture of Nebraska athletics. That's what Rule's doing.
I hope he's actually building the culture because all we heard about with Frost is the culture. We're building the culture.
We also heard a lot of other things from the Frost camp. So I don't know.
But still, the whole thing was culture. We're building a culture. There was no culture. There was nothing.
No. And you just feel it with Rule. You kind of forget that some of those guys, like those seniors, were Frost recruits and not Rule recruits because they're just such Rule guys.
Which is why there were so many freshmen and sophomore playing for Rule because I feel like Rule's trying to usher in the new era of Nebraska football. And hopefully it's a brighter, newer side of Nebraska football than what we've seen the past 10 years. Maybe not that long.
But spring practice coming up, spring game going to be around the corner. I'm excited.
Game, it's going to be fun. Raiola, big name.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's a sellout.
Oh, yeah. Probably will be. But with that, that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening into the Day One Nebraskan show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Tomorrow, Anthony's going to be on, one of the assistant sports editors at the Day One Nebraskan, and we're going to kind of he's going to do power rankings, and we have a feature story that we're going to be bringing on probably. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, same time, 11 to 12. But with that, me and Joseph, we're checking out.
Peace.
Peace.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Hello. Believe it or not, old phones are one of the most common pain points in offices